What's up, guys? So, you're just about to witness a conversation between myself and Jonathan Quarmby. He's an amazing songwriter, mixer, programmer, producer, you name it. He knows how to do it. He's worked with some incredible artists, some of which you might know, like James Morrison, Lewis Capaldi, Jacob Banks, Mika, Ian Brown, and tons of other artists. And in this conversation, we talk about a whole bunch of different things, including how to write good songs, what it takes to make it in the music industry today. And I think you will absolutely enjoy this conversation. So have fun.
I used to work with I worked with this guy a long time ago. Probably nobody will remember him, but I'm pretty sure it's from Finland, called Jimmy Tenner, and we were quite surprised because he was very, very Finnish and not particularly big on social niceties. So you go like, "Yep," and we'd all like this kind of, "Oh, sorry," and "Thank you," and "Oh, would you mind if he was like," and he was a bit more he was quite to the point, more to the point than we were used to. But he was a great guy and he was lovely. But we would just be like, "Wow, he's he's not gilding the lily." Are you Finnish though? Because your English is amazing.
Oh yeah. No. I'm actually originally from South Africa, and
Okay.
yeah, I see you've actually worked with Jeremy Loops, or you actually wrote a song for him.
I did.
I don't know
I
if you
worked with
remember.
Jeremy Loops, and I'm just working with somebody else who's also French. So, no, Jeremy Loops is really good.
Yeah,
And it's good. I mean, it's I think doing that thing of coming from South Africa and being able to have a career. Well, career is maybe a bit strong, but having no. But I mean, he's got a career across the world, which is an amazing achievement. It's hard. It's hard when you're outside Europe and America to really, he must spend a lot of time on planes. That's all I can say.
yeah, exactly. I think I spoke to him once about it. He said that in the beginning, he just like dropped a ton of cash to go to the US and to go perform around, and he lost a lot of money, but he just went there to make contacts and stuff. And then the second time he went back, he kind of broke even, and then ever since then, he just flies all the time. Yeah.
Yes, you've got to America particularly. There's, you can be successful in European countries without having to do a massive amount of work there. But America, I mean, unless you're crazy lucky, you've got to put the work in. You got to tour, and you got to get your face around. It's hard. Yeah, Matthew Mole was the other guy.
Hey, Matthew Mole. Oh, cool. Yeah. Yeah.
Another. I've just done a track with him. Yeah, there is another lovely bloke. Really, really lovely guy.
Yeah, you must have found him quite lovely. He's a really nice guy to be around.
Yeah, I think they're all all coming out of the same management company, aren't they? I'm trying to think who it was. Yes, but no, interesting. Yes, Matthew was saying that we were talking about surfing. I said, "Oh, do you surf?" And he showed me a picture of the beach below his house. And he said, I can't remember what it was, but something like 25 people have been eaten by sharks there in the last 10 years or something. It's just some crazy... It's basically a shark haven. So you don't want to go in the water.
I mean, in all honesty, I think you're more likely to, I don't know, get killed by a cow in general.
No, you are, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but what was it like working with Matthew? Did you like it?
Yeah, no, really, really good. I mean, it's I spend sort of half my time writing and half my time doing what's called production. The writing side, it's great when you write with people who really write. So Jeremy and Matthew are proper songwriters, and they've done it for a long time. They understand the process, and
right.
They know how it works. And writing songs it's incredibly hard to write a song, and it's incredibly hard to write a good song. It's very easy to write a shit song. And I mean, a lot of the time, if you have an artist who doesn't really write, it doesn't say they don't have good ideas or don't have anything to contribute. But if you have an artist who doesn't really write, then it's quite hard to do it with just two people. I mean, often if somebody doesn't really write, it's good to have somebody else there, because it's good to have that bounce. But obviously, if somebody does write, you can get the bounce without the third person. But Jeremy and Matthew both are people who understand the process and, you know, can get in a room and make things happen. So it was a pleasure working with both of them.
That's amazing. That's really cool. And in your opinion, like, what does make a good song? Because it seems like in certain areas it's quite subjective, but I'm sure there are certain objective qualities to a good song. Do you, off the top of your head, do you know any of those?
Yeah, I mean, I think it can be fairly. I think a good song. I mean, I don't know what I know. It's a weird process. I think that people imagine that writing a song is something kind of like otherworldly and esoteric. Sometimes, I mean, writing a song is you write a song because you've got something to say. If you haven't got anything to say, you shouldn't be writing songs. I mean, you know, the great songs say something meaningful, and great songs say something which is from the heart, which has an emotional. So a great song says something meaningful, and it says and it somehow taps into or harnesses some emotion that is within, hopefully, the person who is singing it. But it doesn't have to be. I mean, you can have people who sing songs but don't write, and they're great interpreters of songs. But you know, if you're a writer singer, then hopefully it taps into some emotional kind of depth in yourself, and it also says something important to you, and hopefully there is a sort of it also, if it means something to one person personally, it may well also have a more universal appeal. I mean, I think it's difficult because obviously in different genres, I'm being a bit broad. I mean, in different genres, different things are important. So if you're in like dance music, I suppose that the rules for songwriting don't necessarily apply, or my rules for songwriting don't necessarily apply the same, because I suppose in dance music, sometimes it is a hook or a succession of notes, and the lyric, I think, in those circumstances is possibly less important. I think you can have a great dance tune without necessarily having a great lyric, but I think you can't really have a great song without having a great lyric.
Right. I mean, that makes perfect sense. So how did you start, like, in this whole music thing? Like, did you one day hear a voice from the heavens telling you that you need to start doing music, or like, how did you start?
Well, I always played. My mum was a piano teacher, and I played piano, and then I was one of those annoying kids who could play. Actually, I'm gonna move you over here a bit and see whether our connection's better. Is that better? I was one of those annoying kids who could play lots of instruments. So I'd like pick up a guitar or pick up a. I mean, I couldn't play them well. I'm not trying to pretend I'm some kind of genius, but I could get a bit of a tune out of most instruments. So I ended up playing piano and then playing a bit of guitar and playing a bit of flute and playing a bit of tuba. I was in the core band playing tuba. And then I studied architecture, but I didn't really love architecture, and ended up dropping out, and then going into starting to playing in bands. You know, probably the same way so many people started in those days, right? Because computer-driven music didn't exist. So if you want to do music, you had to get together with a bunch of people, and you had to do it yourself, or you had to collaborate with other people, and so I ended up hanging around in bands for 7 or 8 years, and then there was a sort of I don't know what, maybe like a kind of a watershed moment. We were working with a Parisian artist, and we went to do a record company in Paris, and we all sat around the band, my band, and this French singer who we'd started working with, and the label loved the demos, and they said, "Oh, who's going to produce it then?" And everybody looked at each other because nobody was a record producer, so we all looked at each other, and I realised nobody was going to say they would, so I put my hand up and said I will. And
Wow.
and they
Okay.
went, great, fine, fantastic, no problem. Okay, fine. Yeah, there we go. Because they liked the sound of the demo, so they were like not bothered. They just wanted somebody to take responsibility. We got outside, and Dee, the drummer, Dee, who's actually dead now, sadly.
Oh no.
He went he went nuts. He was like shoving me. He said, who said you were the producer? Who said you could be the producer? And I was like, Dee, like if I had said something, they'd have got somebody else in to do it, and then we'd have all been in a mess. So, and he was furious. He was actually, he never, I don't think he was very, very cross. But, you know, I think that's, you know, maybe an opportunity to talk about production, because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding around production. A lot of people imagine that production is arrangement, and it's not. Arrangement is, so, you know, I have it all the time. Somebody thinks of a piano part or a guitar part or a drum part or whatever, and they go, well, I've produced a record. It's like, no, you haven't produced a record. What you've done, you've done some arrangement. And in France, they actually have an arrangement part of the writing, because in France, a lot of the time in the traditional chanson, they would be doing traditional songs, and then the arrangement of the song would be the new thing. So the arranger was given a part of the publishing. But the producer is the person who has the responsibility to deliver the finished record to the record company. And nobody gives a flying monkey's arse about how that process takes place. If you say I'm a record producer and you interact with a label or whoever, an investor or a label, and you bring them a record and it's a hit and it's successful, then you're a record producer. If you did absolutely nothing in the process, you're still a record producer, because you are the person who's responsible for delivering the record. I mean, obviously, the caveat of that is if you bring them a record and it isn't successful or is terrible, then that will be your last chance to ever be a record producer. But people go, you know, I'm not, you know, in France, again, sorry to talk about France again, but in France they have this thing which is like director artistique, which is the artistic director, and that's really more like a producer, because the producer is maybe the person who goes, you know, like Chris Blackwell and Grace Jones, or like Grace Jones go and work with Sly and Robbie. I mean, that's the genius. That's the genius bit. The genius bit is having the idea, is having the connection. Actually, the technical grind of the string arrangements or the drum parts or the bloody whatever backing vocals or whatever. That's just boring shit that happens in the studio. I mean, okay, maybe boring's wrong. Not boring, but it's just a process. It's a process. And if you've got your hat, if your badge says, I am responsible for that, and then you deliver a great product, then you're a record producer. If you think of a piano part, you're not a record producer, sorry.
That is really interesting, because, I mean, I've asked on multiple occasions, like, what does a producer actually do? So for yourself, for the songs that you've produced, do you ever get your hands dirty, or do you mostly just oversee everything and connect?
No, sadly,
all the right people.
I'd like to be in the former camp of people who don't do anything. And I've tried very hard to get myself into a place of somebody who doesn't do anything. But I think these days, you know, I'm a kind of sort of B plus producer, B/B plus producer. So I'm not in that world of having endless budget. I've got budgets, but I haven't got like huge budgets. And so a lot of the time, like a lot of people these days, most of the stuff that goes on the records that I make, if I'm not working with a band, most of the stuff I'll do it myself. So, you know, I'll do the keyboards, I'll do the guitars, I'll do the programming, I'll record the vocals, I'll do the string arrangements, I'll mix it and master it. Because when you've got a smaller budget, then that makes sense. You know, obviously as the budget expands, I've just come back from, I feel like I'm always talking about France. I just come back from France, and we were doing a record, an African record with a big reggae star from Africa, but this was a record using traditional East African instruments. And and in that respect, I sort of mapped out the arrangements, like with fake with plugins basically. But then we had all the players came in and they sort of either followed or reinterpreted what I'd done, and that was great. It was really inspiring to have. We had the Ngoni player and the balafon player and the kora player. Too many bloody kora players, and percussionists and backing vocalists, and that was great, because that was sort of old school studio. People coming in with instruments and playing, being great. It was good. But like most records these days are made in little rooms.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Do you feel like the doing music in those little rooms, do you feel like that misses something of the feeling of being together with an artist? Really? Do you hate it? Do you hate that?
No, I don't hate it. I think different physical spaces are good for different things. But what is weird is like a lot of, because when I'm writing, more than a lot of the people I'm working with are like in their late teens, sometimes in their early teens, but often in their late teens and early 20s. Right. And they come in, and so many of them reference classic records from the 60s and 70s as being like, wow, this record sounds incredible. Very few people come in and reference modern records and say they sound incredible. Right. I mean, do occasionally, but people, and a lot of people come in and play Fleetwood Mac. And they go, how does this record sound like that? And it's those records were phenomenally expensive. They were made at a level where everything was so heightened. Incredible studios, incredible engineers, incredible microphones, incredible signal paths. The best of everything. I mean, you go to the studio in LA where it's recorded. The guitarist had his own room, which was all done out in this special kind of maple wood, because he thought that his guitar sounded better with this hardwood, reflected off this hardwood wall paneling. I mean, he was what an arse, but I mean, but they went to ridiculous extremes to ensure that the everything was the best it could possibly be. And also the songs were incredible and the performers were incredible. So, and it's like, I think part of, I mean, I use a metaphor here, but like I can't remember, I think it's maybe the Virgin cycling team. I could be wrong. Maybe it's BT cycling team. So British cycling went through a renaissance, and suddenly British cycling teams started winning everything. And what they'd done is they'd started this regime where they looked at every detail of everything that happened, and they tried to get it 5% better. So not just the machines, not just the clothes, the diet. They built special rooms for the cyclists so that when they were sleeping, they always went into the same room with the same bed linen, with the same lighting and the same mood music if they wanted it, the same temperature, absolutely silent, absolutely controlled. And they managed to get them to sleep maybe another 45 minutes longer than they could have done in a less controlled environment. But you know what? What it was every one of those incremental tiny changes added up to a huge change. And I think when you're making a record, if you want to, it doesn't mean to say that records can be made really fast and really badly and can still be bloody amazing. But if you listen to those records like Fleetwood Mac, especially like Rumours, it is amazing because everything was a bit like the cycling team. Everything was made better and better and better. There was. It's trying to do those incremental changes. One thing doesn't make a difference, but lots and lots of things. Every time you try and make it better, and in the end, you will get a significant difference. Right.
Yeah, I actually do remember watching. I don't know if it was a documentary about the cycling team, about how the coach he spoke about improving everything, like every little thing. And I think that's probably a great way of living life in general. I would say.
Yes, probably might not make you great company in the pub, but yes, I agree with you.
I love that music has this ability of bringing people together, and when you really connect with someone, it feels like it's really deep. It's like, because music connects people in like emotional and mental ways, and it's like
totally true. I mean, I think the writing especially the writing process, because when you write with people, you do have to kind of dig down into quite a sort of intimate level quite quickly. And I think that you can sometimes spend a day just sometimes you write with people, you never see them again, but so you'll spend a day with somebody, or even 3 or 4 hours, and in those 3 or 4 hours, I think often you'll end up kind of having a more profound understanding and sort of empathy with that person than you would do in normal life after many years. It's quite a weird thing, because you have to be, everybody in the room ideally has to be very open and very non-judgmental and very, very, giving. Everybody has to give into the pot, and that's that's a good. It's a good process. But I mean, so I go skiing with a bunch of guys who have like normal jobs. I mean, they're all like high powered people, but they're fascinated. They say, so you go in a room like at mid-morning with somebody you never met before, and you just sit down and you write a song, and then you come out at the end and you've got like this whole, I'm like, yeah, they go, whoa, that's weird.
I mean, I guess writing a song is strangely intimate, isn't it? It's like oh
yeah, totally, incredibly intimate. Yeah, no, it is. I mean, I think it's a bit like, I mean, I've used this analogy before, and actually I don't know, maybe I shouldn't use this analogy on the podcast.
No, go for it.
But I think I mean, I have never. I mean, allegedly there is pornography exists in the world, and I have never participated in pornography. But I have been told that what it is you have this safe space, and people go into safe space, and they know that something really something's going to happen, which would never really happen in normal life. But because everybody is bought into the process, everybody understands when they go into the process that that's what's going to happen.
Yeah,
it becomes very normal.
Right.
And I think it's a bit like that when you write a song. If somebody came into a songwriting session who'd never done songwriting, I think some of the time they'd be like, what the fuck? This is so weird. Because, very quickly you're talking about parental breakup and insecurities and, what you felt like when your girlfriend dumped you or your boyfriend dumped you, or, the problems you had with your mum, or, like all those kind of things.
Right.
If you can't get to that level of intimacy quite quickly with people, you're not going to write a good song. But in everyday life, people be like, what are you going there for, sort of thing. But if you don't go there, then you don't get anything.
I mean, it's quite interesting because I've never thought about it that way.
You feel free to wipe that analogy, by the way. That might have been a really bad analogy. I don't want to get cancelled.
Which is quite.
I just like to say that was not through any form of personal experience.
No, I think it's quite a great analogy actually, because I read a lot of fantasy books, and I was reading this one book called The King Killer Chronicles, and the main character meets this tribe of people who have no problem with nudity, like absolutely no problem. But when it comes to music, like singing, it's like unbelievably intimate. It's like
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I was
yes.
Yeah, so it makes sense.
It's like what we decide are the things that are sort of taboo. Well, not as taboo. Yeah, I suppose taboo. It's like it's not necessarily a universal law.
No, it's not.
It's a thing which society dictates.
Yep. Like for example, living here in Finland, coming from South Africa, we quite open people. We really chill, and Finnish people get really, they can get really uncomfortable if you try and speak to them in public for no apparent reason. But they'll take you to a sauna, and you just met the bloke, and he's taking his clothes off, and he's just like, yeah, cool,
Yes.
and you're like, yeah,
And then thrashing you with bird sticks, and then throwing you in the snow.
exactly that.
No, that's true. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's true. No, well, it just shows, isn't it? Whatever, because that's just accepted and seen as totally normal, then it's totally normal.
Yeah, I think my only experience of trying to write a song with other people was I was in a group. I went to this one studio, and they wanted to write a quote unquote hit song, and I remember the whole the whole process was just it didn't feel like the way you describing it. You talking about kind of opening things up and having a conversation and being real. This felt so fake in a way. So I don't know. I didn't like that process, and yeah.
I get very nervous if you go into session and they say, let's write a hit or let's write a banger. That always makes me nervous because I think you write the best song you can write, and sometimes it's a hit, and sometimes it's there was a session a few years ago. I mean, I did a few things with this guy called James Arthur, who was at the time had sort of been semi-cancelled, but actually then came back and had a massive hit record with some of the songs I wrote with him. But we'd had a strict instruction from the record company, which was do not write any ballads. This is before we went into the session. Anyway, we started talking about this thing. We started talking about whatever, and started writing this song. And it was a great song. I knew it was a great song, but I came out so depressed. I thought, there we are. This is my sort of chance. This is like, he's a great singer. He's got shit going on, and we've gone in there and we've done exactly the opposite of what the record company wanted us to do. And so basically, we've got no chance. This is never going to see the light of day. And it was interesting because he was talking about, it was called Safe Inside. He was talking about worrying about whether somebody in your care is going to come home. You're lying awake at night worrying about whether they're going to come home safe.
Right.
And I said to him, look, as a parent, I know exactly what that feels like. But he was like 25 at the time,
right.
I remember. I said, how did you feel this so deeply? And he said, oh, well, because mum, there was a lot of problems with my mum, and when I came out of care, my sister couldn't live at home anymore. So he was like a 16-year-old kid, and he was responsible for his, I can't remember the details, I could be wrong, sorry, James, if I am, but maybe like 12-year-old sister or 13-year-old sister, something like that, who couldn't live at home anymore. And so he took on this role for a few years of kind of parent guardian. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. I mean, especially to give that responsibility to somebody who'd already come from, probably a quite challenging background, and then suddenly to become like, surrogate father to a teenage girl. You're like, wow, okay.
Right.
But there we go. I mean, that's a good example. This song it's an amazing song because it came from a place of truth.
Right. So what did the record company say? Did they like it? Did they?
Well, in the end, I think it was the second single, and it did amazingly well. It was a big. I would say it's not as big a hit as his first single, but it was still a big hit.
Right.
So, because it was just such a powerful. It was just such a powerful
Yeah.
lyric.
I think I watched like a short clip of Adele talking. And I'm sure you're pretty aware now, like a lot of the record companies and stuff, a lot of these viral songs that pop off on social media and stuff. And Adele was saying, she was like, okay, if all the artists are writing these TikTok songs, who's writing songs for my generation? Songs that my generation can feel, like deep songs. And she was just going on about how her whole point of writing is to connect on a deep level with people who feel what she feels and who've perhaps gone through what she's gone through. And I just thought, like, I do feel that sometimes, I don't know, you might agree or disagree with me. I do feel that sometimes when I hear music, sometimes it feels like that part of it is a bit lost sometimes. It's like everyone is just so excited to write a song that just sounds good without actual depth to it. And I guess maybe some people just like to write songs that don't have that much depth in it or whatever. But it's a weird place. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's good. I mean, thankfully we've been through a bit of a weird period. I think that obviously lockdown meant that labels looked very hard at social media to find what they perceived to be the people who were going to be successful in the next generation of people coming through. And so I think in there was no live activity. It was even hard to even meet an artist face to face. So there was this whole period of people being signed basically on social media momentum. And I did quite a lot of work with lovely Sam Ryder, who is, as everybody says, the nicest guy and a phenomenally talented chap. And I thought he was a great example of exactly that phenomenon. He had incredible social media following on TikTok, particularly, and Instagram. Got allegedly one of the biggest, if not the biggest deal ever for an unsigned artist in the UK. I mean, there was such an incredible buzz about him. But then, as they started to roll out his songs, it was clearly not connecting. And although the label was surprised about that, I must say, from my point of view, I was like, well, it is difficult because you have a guy in his 30s with an incredible voice who somebody might like on TikTok and go, oh, yeah, I've seen this guy singing this song. But would they go and seek out his music on Spotify? Would they even have Spotify? I mean, there's a multiple disconnect there. So you're looking at maybe TikTok's demographic, 14, 15 younger kids going, oh, look at this guy singing. Then are they going to go and go on their Spotify, which they probably don't have, or unless they got the parents, and then go and find his music. They're probably going to go and find music which is more relevant to their generation. And in his case, it was lucky that he was put forward, I think, possibly a little bit cynically by the record company, to go and do Eurovision. And of course, because he was second in Eurovision, his career was turbocharged and he suddenly connected. But the truth of the matter is he did not connect because of social media. He got an opportunity to connect because of social media, but he actually connected because of a very old-fashioned platform, which is Eurovision. And actually in the labels now, I mean, I was talking to Kwame Kwarteng, this manager, a friend of mine, we were laughing our heads off because, all those people in labels know there is almost no correlation between people who are big on social media and success. Almost now. I'm not going to say no because there are a few who've done it. And all the labels are awash with largely girls, or not entirely girls, who not only have got massive social media momentum, but often have had a viral hit through doing TikTok. But can they get them to stick? No. And so they're slowly being weaned off the sugar rush of numbers. Slowly. I mean, it's taken a long time. And me and Kwame were laughing because we said, even though they know it's stupid, even though they know that just because somebody's got 140 billion whatevers on whatever, it means absolutely jack shit as far as having a music career. They still can't help themselves. They still kind of, oh, wow, the reality is that artists who are really meaningful, take a long time to develop, are often slightly weird and probably don't have social media skills. If you spend your whole life being big on TikTok, you haven't spent your whole life playing the guitar or playing the piano or writing songs or doing that kind of thing. You've got good at. I mean, Lewis Capaldi is an exception, but he's primarily a musician who's also incredibly funny. But he's not primarily a social media person who's also a musician.
Right.
He's a phenomenally talented writer, singer, who also happens to be a very amusing person and have incredible social media skills, but it's a secondary thing. And actually, ironically now, because I've just been working with a guy called, you're going to laugh. So I've been working with this guy I thought was called Cian Ducroft, and I was in with an Irish singer day before yesterday, called Lyra McNamara, who, watch out for her, she's amazing. She's already quite big in Ireland. I said to Lyra, she said, "What have you been doing?" I said, "Oh, I've just had the #1 record with this guy called Cian Ducroft from Ireland. You must know him." She went, "Who?" I said, "Cian Ducroft." She went, "I've never heard of him." So I called him up on TikTok, and she went, "Oh, Cian Ducroft. Yeah, Cian Ducroft." I can't even do it. I'm terrible at accents. Anyway, he's not called Cian Ducroft. He's called Cian Ducroft. I actually realised I spelt his name wrong on all the links I've sent him, which is really embarrassing.
Oh, Stan, I'm actually really glad you said it first, because I Googled his name and I looked everywhere for someone to say his name, and I just couldn't find anyone. So I'm super glad you took that one.
Cian Ducroft.
Cian Ducroft. So here's a scenario for you. So if you were to start your music career today with all the knowledge you have, but you didn't have any of the contacts, right? How would you go about it?
I mean, I almost wouldn't. I think the odds. I mean, I do feel sorry for people coming into the arts generally, not just music. I mean, the arts are so oversubscribed. I mean, the universities and colleges are, I think, in a morally very compromised place now, because they offer these courses to people. Often, well, in the UK, I don't know what it's like in Finland. You probably have free universities in Finland because it's such a rich country. But in England now, it's basically £9,000 a year to go and study a BA for a BA. That's just for the tuition, and then on top of that, you've got your, accommodation and living and all that kind of thing. But let's say you've got a base level of £27,000, which is a loan from the government at 6% interest. So you're borrowing £27,000 to go and learn to be a record producer, engineer, songwriter. I don't know, all those, actor, the sculptor, all these dream jobs. What they should be doing is they should be very clearly front and center publishing the metrics. I know metrics is important to you guys, on what the chances of you actually making a living out of what you're studying.
Right. Yeah.
Because I absolutely guarantee you, if it's 0.1% of the people who study these courses make a living out of it, I will be amazed. I think it'd be probably far, far, far lower than that. Nearly everybody, there's probably one person in every 5 years on those courses who's actually going to be successful. Who's actually going to, and maybe 100 people across the whole country who are going to make a living out of it. As in are going to make more than, I don't know what a living in Sweden is. In Sweden it's probably like £150,000 a year, but in the UK, should we say like £24,000 a year directly from the endeavours of what you trained in? Yeah, a tiny, tiny proportion are going to do it. And that's what should be said before they let these kids go and study these courses. And then if they still want to do it, I think, cool, great. But they're seduced in. They're like, yeah, you can be an amazing songwriter. Yeah, we taught Ed Sheeran. Yeah, we taught this person who did that, the other. Giving the impression. And then these people, I went to it's boring. I went to the chiropractor the other day, and she was talking about her husband. I said, what does your husband do? She said, oh, actually he's working for Deliveroo or something like that. I was like, oh yeah. She said, yeah, I studied record production, 3 years, and he came out and he couldn't find a job.
Yeah.
I was like, well, what the bloody hell did he think? Did he think there were jobs? Do you think he was a bit like doing accountancy? Oh yeah, I've got I'm being a doctor. Oh, I'm qualified as a doctor. Which hospital am I going to work at? Oh, I'm qualified as a record producer. I wonder which studio I'm going to go work at. tell you what, mate, you are not going to go and work in any studios, because having a qualification as a record producer means absolutely nothing. And somebody should have told that person before they did the course what the odds, what the reality of what the music business actually is, which is that nearly everybody fails.
Yep.
To the point where you might as well say there is no point doing it.
Right. It almost sounds like you'd be better off at least doing it on the side while you, I don't know, working or something.
Yeah. No. Well. Yeah. I mean. Yeah. I mean. I wouldn't even allow that. I mean. I think that there's too many enthusiasts. Spotify is awash with shit music uploaded by people who basically should be doing little other than singing in the shower. But that's the thing now, isn't it? I'm a singer. I'll upload it to Spotify, and then the whole world can hear it. I mean, this whole thing about I don't know if you've seen the new initiative from Deezer and Universal, which now means that if you have less than 1,000 monthly listeners, you're going to get paid a quarter of what you get paid if you have more than. And they're discussing this plan to say that if you have less than 1,000 monthly listeners, you get paid nothing. And I think that's good, because you know what? We're in this too much choice is not choice. We're in this place now where there's so much music, and AI is going to make it even worse, because there's going to be millions and millions of people uploading AI tracks, which you can do easy as pie. So I think a little bit of meritocracy out there. Let's have a little bit of a filter. There should be some kind of, I don't know. I'm being stupid now. You can't get a license to do music, but it's like you should have to go and qualify and say, okay, you're quite good now, so you can put it up on Spotify now. Sorry, that's terrible. That's really snobby, but yeah. My parents were big choir people, so they loved communal singing. I mean, not community singing, communal singing. So and there's a huge thing in the north of England where I'm from, which is choirs and brass bands, which allowed people in the community to take part in music in a sort of social way. And I think that's great. But you know what? Even with those bands and choirs, the standard was still really high. It wasn't like anyone could do it. You had to pass a test. You had to be a great player or a great singer, and then you went and made music with your friends. And that's great.
Yeah, and I think the thing that makes it quite tricky is the fact that almost anyone can upload a track as long as it meets certain specifications. Like, even if it's absolutely trash, you can still put it out there. But what has I'm sensing a tiny bit of pessimism. Pessimism. What did I just say? About
pessimism.
I'm sensing a little bit of that. What has happened over the last few years that has kind of, I don't know, giving you this sort of view as to where the music industry is at the moment?
I don't think it is pessimism. I think in a way, well, one of the things that's a big growth area at the moment is bands. And I suppose, actually, in a serious answer to your question, what I'd do is I'd look at, the value is all about supply and demand. And so if there's shortages of supply and demand, then the value goes up. And if there's oversupply, then the value goes down. And at the moment, there's an oversupply of people making records in small environments like this on computers, and there's an undersupply of people getting together and making records as a band, because it's actually quite hard to put a band together. I mean, it's quite easy to put a fake band together, but to put a genuine band together where you've got people who are living in each other's pockets, who are sharing experiences together, who are growing together as people, that's really quite hard. And record companies in the UK, probably maybe different in Europe, but record companies in the UK are signing bands big style because there's an undersupply of bands and there's a demand for bands. And I think that people like Wet Leg and 975 have shown that bands are big news. What's great about bands is they can tour, they can make money at festivals. I don't know if you said that band, The Last Dinner Party, James, the Arctic Monkeys guy, Ford, he's just done their record. I mean, that's an all-girl band, a bit like Wet Leg. I mean, that might be a bit of a put-together thing, but I think it shows the direction of travel.
Yeah.
And the direction of travel is towards stuff that's more real and away from stuff that's less real. And so in terms of, am I cynical about the music industry? Not really. I think that the values still hold true. That if you're going to be successful, you've got to be clever, number one, hardworking, number two, phenomenally, incredibly talented, number three, have some weird kind of charisma, gift, number four, and maybe that's enough. I can't think of any more. And it takes a long time. It takes 3 years. It takes 3 years to work out if you've got a chance. And then it probably takes another 3 years to actually have a chance. So, apart from, obviously, everybody can think of that person who's come along and has been successful overnight, and they do exist, but actually what they are the blip. They're the one that, they're the lightning strike. You look at people like, I worked with this girl 7 years ago, she signed to Atlantic called Mahalia. And they were like, she'd been signed, she'd already been signed when I worked with her, she'd already been signed for like 3 or 4 years. And after I worked with her, it took another 3 or 4 years. And now she's doing really well. And everybody goes, oh, Mahalia, where did she come from? Wow, she's come from nowhere. It's like, no, she's not only come from nowhere, she's been signed to a major label for 7 years. And they've been working, and they haven't been just like twiddling the thumbs. They've been working all that time. And eventually, she's a super talented girl. And eventually it worked. But that's 7 or 8 years work with funding, with top, the top writers, top producers, tracks coming out, collaborations. Right. That's what it takes to be successful.
No, all right.
This idea that you put a song on Spotify and you have some kind of fluke hit, it's like wake up.
Yeah, no, it's really true. It's like this whole, for a long time, record labels have been big into building artists like over time. And I know that's kind of the issue now in the hip hop side of things. Like from what I can see, is that some of these labels or some of these companies are not willing to put in the work of slowly building an artist, where they'll rather just like, hey, this person just has a hit song, let's sign them and just start putting the stuff out. And right. Yes. You can see there's a lot of tension, at least from what I can see in the hip hop industry, in terms of like, what qualifies as a good track, because there's some really good beats, but then the lyrics are just like, make no sense, or you can't even hear what they're saying. And yeah.
I mean, the rules in hip hop are slightly different. Although if you look at what there is, there's the noise of people having short-term careers and small, having hit songs and then short careers, and then there's the people who actually really have careers, and I think that the short-term thing is maybe slightly different to the pop world, but the long-term careers, it's exactly the same. It's no different. If you look at J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar, Drake, Khaled, they're all those people. They're fucking great, and they work their asses off, and they make great records. You listen to Kendrick Lamar's records, J. Cole's records. Those records are made. They're beautiful records. They're made with the same values as Steely Dan and Fleetwood Mac. They're recorded with great players. They're done in great studios with great engineers. It's just the same. Hip hop has had an advantage. The world of streaming has been very kind to hip hop because of the way the model works.
Right.
Hip hop appeals to essentially kids who have the time to stream constantly.
Right. Yeah.
And so, because of the nature of the audience, if it was still based around CD buying, then the growth in that genre wouldn't be nearly as astronomical as it has been. But because the model is suited the model is swayed towards music that appeals to people who have the time to stream. Because obviously, if like my son is massively into, he used to be really into grime, but now he's into American hip hop because that's where all the good music is at the moment. And he wakes up in the morning, he puts his phone on and he listens to music. He streams music and listens to music all day, and he listens to music basically most of the night as well. And so do all his mates. So those people, and it may there's a lot of conversations at the moment going around about whether that's fair or not, but that is the reality that hip hop has been lucky. Music that appeals to teenage boys has a very good chance of doing well numerically. But again, but on a more fundamental level, I think the values still apply, that you can have a flare up of success more easily in those genres, but to have a sustained career is just as hard, and you have to have the same values as you're doing in anything else. I mean, interestingly, a friend of mine went to see David Joseph the other day, head of Universal UK, and I don't know if this is true or not, but anyway, she said it was a thing. So allegedly, they are going to start initiating 6-year deals because the people at the top of the tree. So you might have got all these junior A&R people running around, signing one-off hits, signing TikTok artists, signing this, that, and the other, and they're kind of coerced into doing that by the structure of the label, because you get a job in A&R, you need to have a hit really quick, or else you get sacked. So that even the structure of the label is counterintuitive, because people at the top of the tree, if you go to David Joseph or Lucien, I've met Lucien for a long time, but they're not stupid people, obviously, and they know that the thing that keeps the lights on in the record company are Elton John and David Bowie and Drake and Kendrick Lamar and the long, Jay-Z and they're the ones that pay the bills. Ed Sheeran, Adele, everything else is just noise. Everything else is market share and noise. If you don't have those sustained careers, you're not building. Their model now is about copyright ownership, and you're not building sustained copyrights if you don't have sustained careers. And and so they know that in order for their model to continue, they need to spend more time doing more patient development, because they know that nearly every artist who's good didn't have a quick hit. Nearly every artist that's good was worked on for a long time and built their art slowly and became brilliant slowly.
That is actually strangely encouraging as well, because I agree. Because especially online, it seems like people think that, like we were talking about earlier, that artists just come out of nowhere and then they're just super popular. But I think it's actually strangely encouraging to know that you can quietly be grinding in the background for ages and get really good at your craft until you, and then slowly build an audience until you can actually live off that and then expand on that. And lastly, if I can ask, in terms of making money in the music industry, what is your view on that in general? It seems like back in the day, it seemed a lot more simple. Like you make records, you sell them, you get some money, you whatever. But now with streaming and all this sort of stuff, it seems to just muddy the waters for a lot of artists, especially ones starting out. If you were getting into this today and you knew what you knew now, what angles would you go at in the music industry to try to be able to make a living off of it? Like I
think you've got to, I think that's a really good question. And it's a question which is asked a lot. And I think that, it may be slightly genre specific, because I think it is, if you're doing like trap, there's a market fit for trap. There's a demand for it. And so you can probably make money by releasing there's certain genres where, again, the teenage boy genres, where this doesn't entirely hold true. But what I'd say for nearly everybody in music is you've got to come up with a plan which doesn't include streaming. Go and treat streaming as the cherry on the cake, the bonus.
Right.
So you've got to be going. We've got to. It's like building a small business. You've got to. My advice would be, you haven't got to do anything. My advice would be, come up with a model which allows you to survive without thinking about streaming. So you've got your live, you've got your merchandise, you've got your vinyls. So if you're a cool thing and people love you, they'll buy vinyl. You've got maybe a bit of sync, maybe you put it, and it's really fucking hard, But if you can do it where you can say, okay, between these things, I've kind of got a business. You've got your 1,000 fans, your 500 fans. They're going to come to your gigs. They're going to buy your t-shirts. They're going to buy your vinyl. And then if you get some streaming, that's great. I mean, all the independent labels in England are on their knees because there's such a huge disconnect now between the playlists and the public. And there was a point where there's a friend of mine who runs a label, and he used to get all this stuff on New Music Friday and Fresh Finds and that kind of thing. And he used to pretty much guarantee that the playlists he got on would afford him a base level of about 1 million streams. The last artist he released, it got on all those playlists. She got on all those playlists. She got 6,000 streams.
Oh, snap! Yeah, yeah.
So there we go. So you say, are the public going to Spotify playlists? No, then okay. So I'm going to do a bit of slagging off Spotify now. So Spotify, I don't know what they're playing at. I mean, there's playlists. Whoever's doing their playlists, they're so shit. I mean, what? It's like there's a weird disconnect. There's like what is actually happening in music, and then there's what people who put together Spotify playlists think's happening, and it's like they're 5 years out of date. It's like I'm aghast. It's like, do you guys not listen to music? And this is a really good. This is terrible. I'm going to tell you this. Self-esteem. So I work with this guy called Tom Rasmussen, who is an amazing, amazing artist. He was lucky enough to be asked, because he's a good friend of hers, by Self-Esteem, if he would go on tour with her.
Yeah.
And Self-Esteem is a working class woman from Rotherham. Maybe not working class, but anyway, that's her sort of thing.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm repeating her press releases. She's fantastically talented. She's absolutely brilliant. She's nominated for a Mercury Prize this year, and she sold 24,000 tickets in central London.
Wow.
Now that is a fucking lot of tickets. 24,000, three nights at Hammersmith Polo.
Amazing. Yeah.
And totally sold out. And, she's not crazy young. She's probably in her early 30s. But she's a current and very relevant artist talking about current and very relevant things. And her records are current and sound very relevant. So she's not a heritage artist. She's not like, you can say the same things about the Rolling Stones, but she's a contemporary artist. Her manager went to see Spotify and said to Spotify, why have you never supported her? Because she's never had any support from Spotify. It's crazy. Yeah. She's on, thousands of streams, not millions of streams.
Amazing.
And Spotify said, get this, live is not a metric we feel is important.
What? Isn't that's the most important?
What fucking metric? There is no other metric. Like, if you go and see an artist in central London, that's like 100 quid per person. Yeah. You got your ticket, you got your taxi, you got your drinks. That's like, what bigger metric is there of somebody's passion for an artist than going to see them live? It doesn't exist. And to me, and the problem is that Spotify, their model is to try and get more people to pay for Spotify. So what they do is, if you go to Spotify via TikTok or Instagram or another social media site, you're actually weighted higher on the algorithm than if you go to it through a Spotify search. Because what they want those kids who are currently on TikTok to migrate to become Spotify subscribers. So they don't give a shit about me or you or people who I'm assuming you. We're busily paying our £9, and when we're searching for things, they're like, "Oh, you're already paying your £9, and we've got your data on you, and you're not really, we're pretty confident you're going to carry on paying us." Whereas those kids are coming in from social media, like, "Oh wow, you come to us from TikTok, great. So what we're going to do, we're going to really prioritize your choices because you're our future audience."
Wow. Yeah.
It's a tail wagging the dog. We've got a technology company that's essentially only interested in growing its audience, dictating the musical taste of the world.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
and
mad.
now you add AI to that and some weird algorithm stuff, and you've got a recipe for some really weird stuff going on. And
yeah, I'd just like to say that I've just destroyed any chance that I ever have anything I do ever appear on the next Spotify playlist. That's it. I'm basically streaming cancelled.
No, but I think this is something else that is really encouraging. I think because we put so much weight and value on Spotify streams. Like, it's just the age we live in now. And I was watching this thing about some hip hop artists who, I mean, apparently, there is ways to inflate your streams and that sort of stuff.
You might find you got a lot of streams from countries that of different places. But you can definitely do it. Absolutely,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And some of the
just like you can boost your Instagrams or whatever.
True.
It's like you just
yeah. And apparently, like, some of these artists that have millions of monthly listeners on Spotify can't sell out a small little venue in like New York or whatever. So it's like, I would rather the latter. I would rather have like 0 listens on Spotify, but when I rock up to New York, the place is absolutely packed.
Yeah. You've got an audience. Yeah. No, totally. No, there was a Believe do this they have a machine to do correlations, and they can look at correlations between different things for different artists, not only artists they represent.
Right.
Because Spotify obviously publicly they publish the streams, which when they first started doing it, I thought that's great, but actually now I just wish they wouldn't do it.
Yeah,
because I think it's just sway.
Yeah.
But anyway, so there was an American woman singer, and she got 1.2 billion streams, of which probably 0.8 of a billion streams were on one song, and then she got some other things. And she put, current, and she put the Jazz Cafe on sale. She sold 60 tickets. Jazz Cafe is like, I don't know what it is, 350 cap venue, and she sold 60 tickets. 1.2 billion streams, and she couldn't sell tickets. I mean, because nobody cares about, Anyway, yeah, we're going around the same point again, but yeah.
Anyway, Jonathan, I don't want to waste any more of your time. Thank you so much for this. I hope you have a fantastic day.
No, pleasure.
And
I hope I didn't say anything too controversial.
No, it was brilliant. Thank you so much, Jonathan.
Okay, cheers. No problem.
Bye.
No problem.
Bye.
Bye.